Neal. Give him a hand. Let me hear it for me.
Welcome to our surrogate training program. If you'll all remove your clothes and put them under the chair. That's right. Go over the door. Oh, you got something now?
Some H2O. Yeah.
Hey everybody, thanks. I hope you enjoyed the film.
Get it open, guys. Come on.
You asked about the truck driver. He's still running.
Yeah.
No,
I own
when we were
that
shooting,
truck.
he starts running, and they're yelling, "Cut, cut!" He just kept going.
Oh, you
Over
took
the
my
hill.
head. Yeah.
Somebody go to Austin and bring him back.
I've never seen someone get away drive slower as she's pounding on the back window.
I know.
Leatherface is, you know,
Well, that was
right
part
there.
of the deal, but they tried to work it out like the guy was like, "I can't find the pedal."
So you guys, I know you and a lot of that cast have a theater background. And I am curious because before I got into film, I was also in theater. It's always interesting to hear transitionally, what was it that kind of got you guys motivated? Was it Texas Chainsaw being approached to be in that film? What was the motivation for you guys to kind of transition from theater to film?
Doing a film. I mean, every young actor, you know, who's done a load of theater, everybody wants to do film because we think that's where the fucking money is. You know, I was doing a children's play for the summer in Chicago at the Goodman Theater called Terrible Tales. Wearing green and yellow party-colored tights and dancing around telling folk tales and singing folk songs from around the world to children. And 2 shows a day, 6 days a week for like $275, you know. But in all fairness, my share of the rent was like $55 or some shit. We had this huge apartment, there were 5 of us living there. And it was 1973, so, but still, you know, you're talking about what, $13 a show or some shit? I mean, you know, we had Mondays off. We were dark on Mondays. Remember that term? Theater's dark. It's like, what, the lights don't work? No, we're not open. But, so, I wanted to learn about film, and I, you know, hope to do film. I hope to do theater and film and everything. So it was my first feature. I had done some industrial commercials and, you know, a couple other things. And are you telling me to hurry up, Daniel? Because I ain't going to.
Always.
Tournament Men is not here, so I have to carry on the tradition of talking way too much about shit nobody cares about. Did I say that out loud?
This is my life.
So, yeah, I jumped at the chance. I wanted to learn all about it. And I spent a lot of time on location, on the set, when I wasn't working and just helping out. You know, with doing the equipment and just picking up the slack wherever I could. And to learn, I wanted to know all about the filmmaking process. So that's what encouraged me, besides the fact that I wanted to go to Texas for the summer, you know, from Chicago.
And what about you? What was your kind of journey?
Well, I was doing Shakespeare, Ennui, wonderful stage productions where there was actual acting involved. Mostly film work is just, you know, they film little snippets and they put it all together and you don't have a clue sometimes in a scene what you're doing because they won't tell you. Oliver Stone casts me in JFK to be an FBI agent for the sole purpose of asking me questions about chainsaw. That's showbiz. You know, there were like 8,000 people who real actors who could have done the part, but he's looking down at the resume going, oh my God, look at that guy. He turns to the casting director and he goes, well, find something for him. She goes, well, we're already cast. He goes, well, find him something. I want to talk about that film. You know the scene where the Terry is in the swing and she stands up and walks towards the house? Oliver Stone's going, oh, how the hell did they do that? It was a simple crane shot, right? They just lifted the thing. I said, Mr. Stone, cranes are like $1,400 a day and $9.50 for an operator. We had $9.50. Tell me, well, how the hell did you do it? I said, well, I'll tell you, but you won't believe me. He goes, try. Okay. We got 2 roadies, large, hulking men, and put one on either side of the swing, that far off camera. And when she stands up, they lift the whole thing up, and the dolly track goes underneath, and then put it back down. Oliver Stone goes, bullshit. I said, I told you you wouldn't believe me. But I segued into voice work because I figured out very quickly that I could talk stupid and not have to go into politics. And they would pay me. And so I thought I died and gone to heaven. I got all the done you need. I got more to house, Bobby, get the truck. I did 26 different voices in 106 episodes of Gotcha Man until I was so schizophrenic, but it was good though, because there was always someone to talk to.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And you told me in the lobby.
He's easily sidetracked, people.
You told me in the lobby at which you served when you were in Vietnam. So first, thank you very much for your service.
We did the weirdest shit in Vietnam. We'd like be hiding behind some trees, and we'd hear them talking over there, and they would like take a shot at us, and I'd yell real loud, "Hey! Stop shooting at me! You don't even know me!" And they would laugh, and then we would know what bush they were behind.
I didn't.
War, I don't know if you know about war, but it's really stupid.
I got a 4F. I had a 4F because I had indicted by a grand jury for trafficking in drugs. So best thing I ever did, man. I didn't get drafted.
What he's referring to is, he said, how difficult was it to make that movie? And I said, well, I was in Vietnam and I moved troops through triple canopy jungle easier than making this film. That's the short version.
Oh, God. Making a film was very, very, it wasn't an easy shoot. It was my first feature film shoot, and until I did any other ones, I didn't realize they were all like that. You know? Toby's methods were, well, for instance, I might be getting off what the question was.
No, go ahead.
But that long, my last day there, which was, I don't know, 29, 32 hours or something, in costume and makeup, under the lights, in 100-degree heat, you know. It took just forever to do that dinner party scene. And the way that Toby shot, it was very unconventional, I know now. Because what's generally done is when you got a scene like that, you should do a couple masters, one from one side of the table of the whole scene, another from the other side of the table, maybe one from either end, and get that over with. And then when you go to 2 shots, close-ups and over the shoulders, you just shoot little snippets. Well, for instance, when Ed had to do his close-ups, instead of them just shooting him saying his lines a little bit at a time, so I have something to cut into. Toby made us do the whole fucking scene every time. When the camera is only on Eddie, for instance. And it was grueling, you know. Plus it wasted a whole lot of film, I reckon. But in retrospect, you know, it dawned on me a couple of years ago when I was watching the film with an audience, how grueling that scene is, and how the tension, you know, and the editing is beautiful in it. And the way the tension builds and builds and builds until Marilyn, you know, Grandpa can't hit her, and Marilyn breaks away, jumps out the window and runs and all that stuff. The tension in the room is so palpable. And it was really stress and tension between all of us. And I think, you know, if Toby was alive and I could ask him, except he hadn't, you know, didn't talk to me about it. I think he was wearing us down until he got us to that point where he got what he wanted. And that was like, cut, that's a wrap, everybody, thank you very much, you know. Does that make any sense to you, Ed?
No.
What a dick.
I'm not doing that. My name is Mikilios Visibita, and I don't know what they're saying.
But the rising tension in that scene, like you mentioned, kind of goes with the full movie, because his shot choices of close-ups and just the score rising with the tension throughout, it really adds to it. And the first instance that takes place, I think, is really when we see you for the first time in the van, and you know, you're wigging out, but you keep looking at Franklin. By the way, I may be kind of like an asshole for saying this, but I kind of enjoyed watching Franklin get it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yes, cheer.
And Paul Partain was one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet.
Not when we film.
He was a sweetheart. Well,
Not when we film.
Well, I didn't have any scenes with
Sure.
him, so.
He was doing method acting, and every day he'd come and stay in character the entire day and just piss everyone off.
It worked.
Cut to a couple of years later, of course, he's married a lovely woman, and he was the nicest guy ever. And we went, who are you? we had to be talked out of whacking him on the set. He stole my raspberries thing, and all kinds of really nefarious. The scene where they're at the van and Marilyn's trying to get the flashlight.
Oh,
that
she
is
was
in
really,
real time.
It was really.
He was supposed to let her have it, but he didn't. He just kept, no, we're gonna tell it. And she finally just hauled off and knocked the shit out of him. And Toby's on the other side of the camera talking to the producer going, you want to cut? Hell no! Let them kill each other. This is good stuff.
Thing. It's like, Sally, give me the keys. I'll go with you.
But that is in real time. All of her pounding on him is in real time.
And it's shot beautifully. It's all by the headlights of the van and everything. That's a marvelous scene. But part of I think, the character of Franklin, if you knew Kim Henkel and his sense of humor and his genius as a writer, Kim Henkel is probably the first screenwriter ever to make the handicapped guy an unsympathetic character. And Kim thought it was just fucking hysterical. He just cracked up. I mean, he tried not to ruin takes with Franklin because he was trying not to laugh. You know, and it's just a stroke of dark comedy genius, I think, that, it never happened before.
Going back to the van. What was Toby's kind of like direction for you? Because you and Mosley in 2 body language wise, are very similar, especially the chase with you chasing her down the highway and then him in two chasing her up that hill. The frantic movements.
It's funny you should ask that question. During the entire filming process, from beginning to end, Toby Hooper said one sentence to me. One. I was doing a combination of my schizophrenic nephew and the wonderful actor Strother Martin. What we got here, failure to communicate, that kind of halting thing that the wonderful actor Strother Martin did from Colonial. And I was combining my character of my real life schizophrenic nephew with all the stuff that he does, and Strother Martin. And the one sentence that Hooper said to me during the entire filming process was, he took his little Clint Eastwood cigar out of his mouth and said, do some more of that Strother Martin shit. Do some more of that Strother Martin shit.
Oh, yeah, well, he was.
That was it.
Strother was one of his best friends.
No. Cut to Directors Fortnight in California at the Directors Guild 10 years later. It's on camera. Oh, Mr. Hooper, how did you elicit such a wonderful performance by the guy who played the hitchhiker? Well, he was a young amateur, difficult to work with at many times. What I was going for was a kind of milieu.
Yeah.
Did some more of that Strother Martin shit.
Yeah, he also.
My 6 children at that point said, "You can't kill him, they'll know it's you." And I thought, how bizarre is this? Because I was going to whack him, because he kept all the money in it. And so I was going to whack him from Northside Houston, Texas. You don't steal from me. It's not good. Anyway, I was going to whack him, but my 6 children came to me in the room and said, they did an intervention. You can't kill him. You've gone public, they'll know it's you. We're doing a show in Compton, and 2 black kids come and go, we really got one out. We'll whack this mother for 5 minutes. They were dead serious. I was going, I said, no, don't whack them. Please. Don't know it's me. No, man, you could like be in, Alaska or some shit. Kill them. I said, no, please don't kill me.
You know what you were saying about what he said to the Directors Guild and all that stuff is people started reading a lot of stuff into the film. Like it's an analogy of the Vietnam War, this and that, and blah, 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 which is just a crock of shit, But once he saw the hype going on about just how genius this film is, he started playing into it. Oh yeah, to keep the hype going,
But the dolly tracks. Like you put the camera on the little dolly tracks, and then the camera slides up and down the dolly tracks. They had a camera package that cost them like a couple $100 because that's all they could afford. And so they had 2 pieces of dolly track. That's all they could afford.
Yeah, we had
the camera
like
gets on the
12
dolly
feet.
tracks to the end, which is about like that. They can't go any further. It's the end of the dolly track. Cut to Directors Fortnight, Hollywood, California, 10 years later. The staccato movement, Mr. Hooper, that you used was brilliant. How did you achieve it? What I was going for, I was trying.
Yeah.
2 sets of dolly tracks. Pent on fire. Funny stuff.
He was a jerk. No, really, if you want to hear, so the last time I saw him alive,
My 6 children were guarding him.
he was at Lorimar Studios which was the old Warner Brothers lot, I think, and in Burbank, and he was directing the miniseries Salem's Lot. And my agent said, you gotta go over, you gotta get an appointment with Toby and talk to him, man. There's about 3 or 4 great roles for you in this film, so So I set up an appointment with him. I come onto the lot, but I go into his office, and his assistant goes, hi, John, he went to lunch, he's probably coming back to the commissary, he'll be here in 10 minutes or something. I'm like, okay, should have a seat. Well, in 20 minutes, he's not there, and she goes, I'm sorry, John, I don't know. Look, he should be here shortly, so half an hour. He's not there. And so about 20 minutes later, he's still not there, and she was embarrassed, you know. She was like, John, I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened, so I'm fuck. And I'm walking, there aren't any children or like devout Christians in here, are there? Either one. No devout Christian children. Sorry, sometimes I crack myself. But, so I leave, I'm walking back to my car, and there's fucking Toby. Walking across the lot, he has stopped, and he's talking to somebody. And so I walk up behind him, I come behind him and go, hey, Toby. And he turns around and goes, hey, John. I said, we had an appointment, a 1 o'clock appointment. And he goes, oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Listen, John, I gave it some thought, and there's really nothing for you in this film, in this series, and except for $50 a day extra. And I didn't think you'd want to be have a job for $50 a day extra, did you? And I said, no, Toby, I wouldn't. I walked off and never spoke to him again. So then 5 years ago, I get hired on to do this film in LA, and Tom Holland is directing it from Child's Play and Fright Night. And I get this phone call from Tom Holland. And I'm like, Stacey's like, who's that? Tom Holland. She goes, what? I said, why would he be calling me? And she goes, maybe he got hired to direct that film. And I was like, oh. You know? So I call him back. And he says, hey, John, I hear from Indiana. I have family in Indiana, up by Bedford, blah, 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 blah. He goes, hey, John, this is a very important role. And it was a marvelous role. And I could play a psycho pedophile. Fuck, it was a lot of fun, man. So much fun. I got to research pedophilia. You know, my wife was like, what search criteria did you use to look this up? I'm like, how can I be a pedophile? Is that, But, so he goes, are you up to this? Can you do this role? I said, yeah, Tom, I can do this role. I'm an experienced, educated actor. Of course I can do this role. Because, well, I didn't know anything about this. So I went over to Toby's house. He's a friend of mine. I went, oh, great. And I asked him, how you were as an actor. And he goes, well, Toby said, well, I don't know. I only hired him because of his stature. Because I'm so small. And I was like, fuck. And the thing is, he died before we rolled on that film. So it was like the last thing he did to me in his life was try to get me shit canned from a really good fucking job. That's how much of a jerk he was. So if I seem bitter, perhaps it's because I have a reason to be.
A little bit. The story of family, especially in this one, is obviously the two of you, Gunner, and then Jim Sideout. How was he when you're not filming? Because he was...
Jim?
Yeah.
Jim was the most wonderful man in the world. He was a brilliant stage actor, and I could do Jimmy as well as Jimmy. Well, now, here you come. You nap-haired idiot. So one day we were both very pissed off at Toby who'd done some heinous thing. And we said.
For a change.
And I said, Jim, come here. Let's wind Hooper up. Okay, what are we gonna do here? I said, follow my lead. We had an actual rehearsal of a scene. We hardly ever had rehearsal because you don't have the time to do them. But it was a scene we wanted to rehearse briefly. So he said, okay, you two rehearse the scene. And we both turn to Hooper and go, okay. Until we start the scene. Well, now, you never here, idiot. Oh, don't call me that. You always call me that. Yeah, I'm calling you that because that's what you are. Don't call me that. Oh, you just knock it off. Hooper's like standing next to the producer and he goes, what are they doing? And the producer goes, I think they're messing with you, Toby. And he goes, cut that out! We both turned to Hooper at the same time to go, okay. No! He was a terrific guy.
He was a
For
marvelous
2 days
guy.
when he passed.
He and his wife Ruth was a marvelous person. And he had a daughter my age that was a fucking babe, man. I was 20 years old. This loaded with testosterone. And he saw me sort of looking at her. And he was a super nice guy, but he saw me checking out his daughter and went, dude, don't even think about it. Like, yes, sir, Mr. Seadow.
This movie is really a great example of the power of suggestion. And
You know how many $5 bets I've won? I've won thousands of dollars in
Oh,
$5
yeah.
bets. It's a sucker bet. They bet me $5 that you see that meat hook go right to her. No, you don't.
The meat hook?
The meat hook. It doesn't
Yeah,
go to her. They lift her up and they cut her.
You see her reaction to the meat hook, but you don't see the meat hook.
You can't put the meat hook because that would involve CGI, which there was none in 1974.
Yeah, and what's the other thing? When Franklin.
But your mind
The other one
completes
is
it.
when Franklin gets killed, they say, man, when he kills the guy in the wheelchair and he practically cuts him in half and all his guts fly out, and I say, you never see that. It's all shot from behind in silhouette. You see some blood flying up off the saw into Gunner's clothes and face and all that stuff, but you don't see him being, there's no bags of entrails, like.
So we're doing a thing in Hollywood with the Industrial Light and Magic crew, and they got all their jackets on. And wait a minute, wait a minute, how'd you make a movie with no CGI? I said, well, we can have it, but how'd you make the movie? Well, they said jump out the window, we jumped out the damn window. Bad news, room was on the second floor.
I think that is a testament to what makes horror so special. And it's 4 words: motherfucking practical effects. But with that comes a shitload of work. And you guys are on a limited budget in the hottest of the hot Texas. I know that I saw it or read it on the internet, so God knows it has to be true. But the power of suggestion, which we talked about, there was an article that I read that he thought that you guys were gonna walk away from this thing with like PG-esque rating to get wider distribution. And I mean, obviously that got shut down real fast. But when you guys were on set, was he really optimistic? Like this thing is?
No, he was consumed. Him and Hinkle and the Danny Pearl, the cinematographer, would go and sit down in the dirt on the side of the road and go, well, we should put the camera. Where should the camera? We should put the camera somewhere. Danny, where should the camera? We should put in front of the car. Oh, okay. No, they had the shot list. A shot list is what scenes you're going to shoot, written on the back of envelopes, for God's sake. you know, no.
And he never, and the thing is, and Daniel Pearl was the one who insisted, you know, because it was just so unorganized. And Daniel told me this in Long Beach a few years ago when we were together. He said, you know, about the second day or something, because I need a shot list, you know, we can speed this thing up a little bit, we had a shot
Where's
list.
the envelope?
And so they sat down, they made a shot list for the next day. And Toby, of course, threw it out the window immediately. He just started, you know, winging it. So, and it was frustrating for Daniel, you know, but man, the film would not have done anything if it wasn't for
Actually,
Danny
Danny Pearl was the second cinematographer, because remember what happened in the first one?
No.
He left the lens cap on. And
He
so,
what?
you know what, we need to get a guy that doesn't do that.
No, what if I don't recall? Well, he was, who? No, I wasn't there yet. No, you had already.
He left it. Yeah, look great.
Wow.
You guys, if you have a question, Rob, can you raise your hand?
Hey.
If you guys have a question in the, for Ed.
Horse is gotta be way in the back row, Jesus. All right, I'm getting my exercise. Hi there, what's your name? What's your question?
It's in the mail.
Yeah, for both of you, after the real grueling shoot.
I'm sorry, can you talk louder?
Yeah, the grueling shoot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was sort of legend with the heat you put up with and all the torture. For both of you, what is the easiest film production you've ever been on? That you, maybe it was just so luxurious or well crafted that you just felt that it was pleasurable.
What was the easiest film shoot we ever had?
Yeah.
That was my Aunt
Yeah,
Effie's
that-
bar mitzvah. Bar mitzvah.
Probably a film called what was the name of it? What's that one we were on in
I'll
Tennessee?
never forget what's his
The
name.
one we were on in Tennessee, Ben Dixon's.
Oh my God. That wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't, never mind. No, it wasn't, but I got to ride a horse, that's why I liked it. I got to wear a Civil War costume and ride a horse, so I was like in fucking young actor heaven. Even though I was 50 years old, it was over at that time, but, you know, every young actor wants to be in ride a horse in a movie, you know.
No, seriously, the easiest thing I ever shot was a Disney film called My Boyfriend's Back. Because on a $12 million film, that actually only cost them $4 million, but that's a long story about how they do films. They have guys who take care of guys who take care of guys who see to it that guys are doing what guys are doing. But it is so easy on a film like that because they bring you in, they sit you down, they shoot for 2 minutes, they take you back, they sit you down, they bring you back. So it's like, okay, I'll do my 3 lines, and now I'll eat some Doritos. And so on an A film like
And you have
that,
an
it is
you
very
have an
easy to film,
air-conditioned trailer.
unless you're doing an action scene, which we didn't. So an A film like that, it gets very easy to just kind of hang out and do your 8 lines a day and then, eat $400 worth of snacks.
Chainsaw 3D for me was easy. I only worked on it for 2 days, but excuse me. For one thing, I had an air-conditioned trailer, or I don't know, hunting wagon, part of a trailer, and my own bathroom and makeup table and all that shit, and so I would just go when they called me, and then I'd hop in a van and they'd take me to the house and let me out, and it paid quite well, and it paid on time. So, it was an easy shoot.
But you always hope that you're going to work with like really great actors who do great things because they pull you along with them, and it's so much easier for your job. And I always wanted to work with great people. Like I wanted to work with Christopher Walken. Oh my gosh, the wonderful Christopher Walken. My friend said, "Oh, I just did a film with him." I said, "Really?" He was in it. I said, "Well, tell me about it. What did he do? What did he do?" He said, "Well, they called lunch, and we were doing a seaside scene, and Mr. Walken got up and he walks down to the edge of the water, and everybody was sitting at the table, just starting to eat their sandwiches. And Mr. Walken took all of his clothes off and folded them neatly and put them on the edge of the beach and walked into the water. And they all went, "What's Walken doing?" "Oh." He walked into the water up to here and turned around, and the water was like this. 30 minutes go by. They call lunch. We're back, which means lunch is over. He walks out of the water. They kept telling him what he's putting his clothes on. And he turns to the entire cast and says, "For lunch, I was an alligator." Pray, oh, please, that you will be part of that someday.
Rob, you got somebody else out there?
I sure do. Hi there. What's your name and your question?
Hey, I'm Eric. Gunnar said that everybody hated him for a couple decades after the movie. You guys mentioned that you didn't really like Peter on stage or on shot. Was that true, or?
Well, I think the terminal flatulence had a lot to do with that.
What was it? I missed, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
See, somebody said that we all hated Gunnar. That's not true.
Oh, no, God, no, he was a close friend of mine.
Oh yeah, he was a big
Sweetheart.
teddy bear. He was a very nice man. Do you know that his IQ was like 148 or something? He wrote books on, do you even know what an estuary is? I didn't, I had to look it up. He wrote books about the estuaries of Maine. He was writing a poetry magazine when they cast him. He was really,
Yeah, he was an
really
incredibly intelligent man and very good writer.
excellent.
And a marvelous sailor, you know. He wrote a book about sailing, and he cruised on many big sailboats in the North Atlantic coast, you know, because he was a fucking Viking, you know. Well, he was from Iceland, you know, and
He was actually a very good-looking man.
he
And they,
was. He
remember
was
when Toby came to him and said, he was trying to take his mask off, it's 107 degrees. He wanted to take his mask off so he could breathe. And there were these people with cameras trying to get a photograph of him with his beautiful Nordic, Icelandic face in contrast with the mask. And they paid him like an extra $100, which was a fortune in those days, to keep the mask on. So nobody could get a picture of him without the mask.
I couldn't take my makeup off. It was not a mask. It was latex, but it was put on in sections and glued down to my face, you know, or my entire head, really, with a spirit gum. And, but Gunnar's was a mask, and he could take it off, but they would not let him take it off unless the setup was going to take more than 15 minutes or
And
something.
then they would hide him in the trailer where nobody could see him.
And, but the setup, it never took 15 minutes, so ergo, he never got to take his mask off, you know, so he and I were suffering terribly, you know, but,
So no, we never hated him.
no, we never hated it. And, you know, the last time the three of us worked together was in Connecticut at a convention. We were doing this, and I had a wonderful time spending any time with Gunnar, and he, for one thing, he thought it was really funny. I could make him laugh, you know, and we were doing this breakfast with Leatherface thing or something. Do you remember that thing in Connecticut?
No.
You don't?
What?
You fuck. You know, his memory's shot. But this guy had asked, you know, about how what made it different than.
I hope you have enough for everyone.
what made our film different from other, the slasher films of the 70s that came after it. I said, well, there's no blood and guts. There's very little blood and guts. It's also chested, and there's no TNA. There's no titties, no. I said I said my character, Grandpa, has the closest thing to sex that any character in a film is. And this kid goes, sitting in the front row, and says, "Oh." He goes, "Oh, you mean like when Grandpa's lifting up the hammer and then bringing it down, lifting it up and bringing it down?" And I went, "No, I was talking about sucking on a beautiful girl's finger. But, whatever blows her skirt up, Daddy-o." And Gunnar started laughing and could not stop. And the rest of the weekend, whenever things would be slow, he'd look at me and just start laughing. I'd say, "What?" He'd go, "Whatever blows her skirt up, Daddy-o." And he was diagnosed the following week with pancreatic cancer, and it passed shortly after that.
Rod, we got another one out there?
You got it. I'm getting the wrap-up sign, so I'm sorry to those I didn't get to, but this will have to be the last question. So what's your name and your question?
My name's Manny. My buddies and I watched Leatherface, Chainsaw Massacre in the 90s hundreds of times. We'd quote it, memorize the lines, and die laughing. I'm sitting here chuckling to my wife. Did you guys ever find the one-liners funny during the making or years later? Like cost of electricity, after an idiot, look what your brother did to the door.
Did you see?
I remember when they came up with that line.
Did you see the scene where Marilyn runs by the little house, makes an excellent turn right through the little gate thing and runs into the house? Gunnar is chasing her. He weighs 340 pounds. He can't stop. He goes by the gate and has to come back. It's in the film. John and I are over behind the camera going, whoop, 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 whoop. Blooper going, cut that out! I couldn't stop. You don't think that's funny? You have
He
to
was
watch the
wearing
film.
cowboy boots and actually had lifts on them, so they were larger than, taller than they actually needed to be to make him even bigger. He was referred to as a Keystone Cop's turn. And the look what your brother did to the door. I remember when that, Kim just shot that out there. When the Jim Cedar was coming up, and he goes, wait, try this. Get pissed off about the door. And so Jim just goes, wait a second. He goes, look what your brother did to the door. And I loved all the weird profanities like, shut up, you bitch hog. I mean, you ever heard the term bitch hog?
You don't live down where I live.
Huh?
The funniest scene in the whole movie, if you were on set that day, I mean, we had to be restrained and gags had to go in mouths. The guy at the gas station, he's sitting there staring at the sky, was a friend of Marilyn Burns. And so she said, Toby, can you put my friend in the scene? Just anything. He said, okay, well, have him sit in the chair. And he had this mop bucket full of real soapy water. And Cedal walks over to talk to the people in the van, and he follows him and takes this 2-foot piece of old towel and slaps it on the windshield. And the whole windshield that the camera's supposed to be looking through is inundated with soap. And he goes, you can see it in the film, they start laughing inside the van because like, what the hell? Who is this guy? They didn't even know who he was. And so Cedal walks back, the guy goes back with him. They say something to Mr. Cedal, he comes back, and the guy comes back with him and does it again. Until it was like we had to leave the set because we're like,
Yeah, the second time.
we're trying to film it.
The second time, Alan actually turned the windshield wipers on and totally splattered Jim Seadow with the filthy, soapy water.
Yeah, Jim, it's in the film. And Jim goes, well, now, we'll that shit's going all over my face.
He was, I think that guy
That
sold,
wasn't scripted. Yeah.
didn't he sell newspapers on a corner in downtown Houston or something too?
Who, that guy?
Yeah.
No, he had a lot of money.
Oh, really?
Yes, he did.
Why not?
He paid for Maryland's parking lot.
Well, you guys, I can talk to you guys all day about this movie.
And my cap's here.
And, but my God, it is a masterpiece, as evidenced tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Love Horror Events, give it up one more time for John Dugan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out.
We owe so much appreciation to the people that brought us here, and we owe even more to those of you who came here tonight. Thank you.
You know, for a film I made $637 on 1 year later, to think that later I can come and do this, it's just mind-boggling to me, and it's all because of all of you, and just thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ed Neal, John Dugan. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate you. And thank you all for coming out here tonight. I know it's crazy COVID times right now, but appreciate you being here and supporting.